The quality of your life will be determined by the quality of your decisions. And Generation Next is going to have to make a lot of decisions. We are leaving you a world full of inequalities and injustices, a world where you can have nearly anything delivered to your door in under 48 hours, a world that will be forced to reckon with the climate crisis, a world that is flooded with information and misinformation and a lot of options. The most powerful tool you have for weeding through all this information and making good decisions is something you regularly ignore. It's a superpower that you have, something you were born with, but take for granted every day. It's your intuition. Intuition is an inner knowing, an inner voice. It's your connection to your truth. We all have intuition. It is a sixth sense that's built into every single human being. You have all known something with great certainty without knowing how or why you know it. And you've probably also all ignored that hit of information and then watched things go south. How many of you have changed an answer on a test, but your first answer was right? You let your thinking mind talk you out of your intuition. On the other hand, have you ever felt called to start talking to someone new on a whim, and they become a really good friend? That's intuition too. For most people, intuition is strongest when we're children. Then it gets weaker and less prioritized through the teen years and early adulthood when we're developing social relations and the intellect. You let your peer group and your role models and your thinking brain talk you out of what you know to be true for yourself. Listen, your intellectual mind brings many benefits to your life. Analysis, critical thought, predicting outcomes, abstract concepts, pattern recognition. The mind is incredible. But the mind also has limits. The mind sometimes thinks it has all the answers when there's a lot of information it doesn't have. The mind can talk you out of what your heart really wants. You can spin and analyze and deconstruct so that none of the options you have seem viable. And really, the intellect can't ever tell you if your shower is hot enough for you or if you're really happy. Good decisions often require the intellect and the intuition to work together. Sometimes intuition sounds like this very mysterious fringe experience. We acknowledge that artists are incredibly intuitive and use that connection for their creativity. That makes sense to us. But professionals use intuition all the time to make good decisions in business, in healthcare, in hiring practices. Some of the world's most influential business people credit their success to intuition rather than logical, deliberate thinking. Doctors regularly make intuitive calls without the help of a textbook or a research paper. You need both parts of yourself. But in today's world, the thinking mind can be a bully, and you need to actively make space for your intuition to take center stage sometimes. To give intuition your attention, you need to be in control of your attention. Distractions are abundant in your life, and that's not going to change. The foremost of these is technology, devices. When you're using your devices, do you feel like you're in your body? Do you feel like you can control your attention? Most importantly, do you feel like you're listening to yourself? Making space for intuition means developing your listening skills and being open to receive whatever comes through. The thinking mind relies on what makes sense. Intuition doesn't always make sense in the moment. Last week, my intuition told me to leave a hospital waiting room. I didn't know why. Maybe the wait was going to be ridiculously long. Maybe the practitioner wasn't a good fit for me. Ultimately, I ended up feeling really grateful I had the extra time to edit this talk. And I realized that was more important to me than what I was waiting to do. It can be scary to follow your intuition because the outcome isn't always clear. We like certainty. We like control. We like to feel good. And when you follow your intuition, you might not always feel good, but it feels right. There's a sense of alignment that's incredibly validating. When you invite your intuition to speak to you and you really listen, you get to live an authentic life and deeply connect to the world around you. I've devoted my life to honing intuition. I work as an intuitive healer, which means I use my intuition to help people figure out why they're sick and how to heal. Sometimes this means I just know where to touch someone or where to place acupuncture needles. Sometimes I sense we need to have a conversation about something seemingly unrelated that's causing imbalances in the body and spirit. But I'll tell you a secret that I don't tell most of my patients, which is that I developed my intuition this way because it's so hard for me to use my intuition in my own life. For years, decades, I was totally disconnected from my intuition. I was raised by my father, who is exceedingly analytical and rational, and there just wasn't a lot of room in our life for talking about intuition or feelings. I would regularly get hits of information. I would have these gut feelings, but I wouldn't know what to do with them. I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust myself. And eventually, every time I got a message, I just tried to turn the volume down, like turning down the radio. I let a cough go too long. I knew I should see a doctor, but I didn't. And it turned into pneumonia. This happened twice. I took a summer sales job that I ended up hating instead of working at a bakery, which in hindsight, I would have loved. At the time, I knew I would love it, but my mind liked the sales job better. It made more sense for the trajectory I was on. I even picked the wrong college, and I hated my time there because even when my intuition was screaming at me to make a different choice, I wouldn't leave that trajectory I was on, the trajectory my mind and the people around me had plotted out for me. Eventually, I followed my intuition. I took time off from college to study massage therapy in New Zealand, which was a total curveball, and it absolutely changed my life for the best. But for years, I doubted the voice that was trying to guide me, and I made my journey a lot more difficult for myself. I want to help you choose an easier path. People often ask me where intuition comes from. This is where language can trip us up. You could call this inner voice God. You could call it the Holy Spirit. You could say it's from your spirit guides. You could call it your deepest self, or your highest self, or your truest self. Maybe you are unconsciously picking up all kinds of information and just processing it in a way we don't scientifically understand yet. What I can tell you is that there is constant communication coming to you. And when you tune into this signal, you make better decisions and you have a better life. So how do you know when your intuition is talking to you? Here's your first clue. If you're searching for your answers, then you're in the wrong sector. Analysis, pensiveness, deliberation, these belong in the domain of the intellect. When you notice you're falling back on these tools, notice that you're in your head and get into your body. Try it right now. Wiggle your toes. Feel your lower body in your chair, connected to the earth. One of my teachers used to say, lose your mind and come to your senses. Let your body speak your truth to you and listen. People sometimes ask me how to differentiate anxiety from intuition. Both can show up as feelings in the pit of your stomach or a fluttering in your chest. Both can feel like a physical cue that something needs to change. Anxiety, however, is based in fear and constantly using what if thinking to come up with unpleasant scenarios. What if I'm rejected? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if it doesn't go well? Anxiety lives off expectations and comparisons, and it spins and spins. It goes on and on. Intuition is neutral. It has no emotion or charge. It is a direct, immediate message about how you can thrive. Intuition is effortless. Your spirit is always talking to you, advising you, guiding you through your intuition. But of course, you don't always want to hear what it has to say. So consider right now, what makes you ignore your intuition? Think back to a moment you had a strong gut feeling and didn't act on it. Why? Did it require a lot of work that was really inconvenient? Were you trying to fit in with the pack and it felt alienating or isolating to go your own way? Maybe you were quite innocently trying to make other people happy, your friends or family or mentors, and ignoring your own needs. Were you so busy distracting yourself with screen time that you couldn't hear the signal in the first place? Notice these patterns. It takes effort to change them, but it's worthwhile because when you change the patterns, you tap back into the signal from your intuition. When you downplay or ignore that signal, the universe has to get louder to get your attention. First, it throws pebbles, little hints that something needs your attention. Then it throws rocks, louder signals, more urgent calls to change direction. And then it sends boulders. And believe me, you do not want to deal with the boulders. I've witnessed boulders that were serious medical diagnoses that were difficult to treat. Unfaithful spouses that caused unpleasant separations. I've watched people pour their life savings into something that wasn't in alignment with their soul. They lost everything. But you don't have to wait for a boulder to change course and start listening to your intuition. So how do you harness this amazing latent superpower you have and avoid the boulders? The signal of your intuition gets louder with practice. So practice finding that signal. Practice every day. Start small. Practice when you're picking your underwear. Practice when you're choosing an ice cream flavor at the grocery store, and there are so many options. Practice when you have 20 minutes of free time. Don't just open a device, get present. Listen to what your soul wants to create or develop or explore, and go do that. Start there and work up to bigger decisions. When you flex that muscle, you make it stronger. And your intuition will be available to you whenever you need it. Try this right now. Think of a decision you're trying to make. Maybe it has 2 or 3 possible outcomes. Now, one at a time, I want you to hold each possibility in your mind and heart and body and notice, do you feel heavy or light? Do you feel tense or relieved? Intuition feels light, a sense of relief. Your language for that feeling might be different than mine or anyone else's. Maybe your intuition speaks to you in images or bodily sensations, or you actually hear a voice in your head. But notice your unique feeling of an intuitive hit and stay present with that. There's a flavor, a texture to it that's different from the thinking mind. Notice how that feels and invite more of that sensation into your life. When you cultivate this connection, you tap into your superpower. I can't tell you exactly what your intuition is trying to tell you right now, but I can urge you to start listening. No one else can lead you down your path. You have to make it yourself, one decision at a time. But you have this key tool for finding what you truly want. When you hear that little voice, pull up a chair. Thank you.